think Ryan Watkins put out a tweet about how he thinks that bubble conditions are forming, and I think he's right. I think the amount of these single purpose vehicles spinning up to simply acquire coins with leverage is a very bubbly thing. That doesn't mean I think it's going to end tomorrow or within 3 months or whatever, but there is some euphoria kind of seeping into the market.
Quick shout out to today's sponsor, Algorand. We'll hear more about their AlgoKit 3.0 and how it's built to supercharge your app development on Algorand later on in the episode.
What's up, guys? This is Boccaccio, the bad host.
And the better host, Danny.
Today we have a very, very important announcement for you. We are hosting Permissionless in Brooklyn. What dates?
It's going to be in June 24th through the 26th.
Very good. You can use code 0x10 to buy your tickets. We're going to do lots and lots of stuff. Dinners.
Games. You'll get to meet the whole crew, the OX Research crew, hopefully a bunch of the Blockworks Research and other Blockworks crew, and maybe a dunk tank.
We're going to have fun. Whatever we can smooch off of Yano and Mippo, we're going to do it. So if you are a 0x Research listener, make sure to use code 0x10 to buy your tickets. Danny, any parting words?
And we'll see you there.
Nothing said on 0x Research is a recommendation to buy or sell securities or tokens. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and any views expressed by anyone on the show are solely our opinions, not financial advice. Boccaccio, Ryan, and our guests may hold positions in the companies, funds, or projects discussed.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 0x Research. Today I'm joined by Mark Arjun, Ryan Cashflows Connor, and Carlos, resident Solana expert. Boccaccio could not make it today. He was not ready for the heat that we're about to drop on this pod. Just kidding. I think he's traveling or something. He just couldn't make the timelines work for him. How are we doing today, guys? The markets are a little bit different maybe than the past few months. I think people have, like, super cycle is on people's tongues again. Like, are we that excited again, or how are we feeling?
Yeah, I think Ryan Watkins put out a tweet about how he thinks that bubble conditions are forming, and I think he's right. I think the amount of these single purpose vehicles spinning up to simply acquire coins with leverage is a very bubbly thing. That doesn't mean I think it's going to end tomorrow or within 3 months or whatever, but there is some euphoria kind of seeping into the market, and you have I think a few macro catalysts to kind of act as tailwinds there, with just one, Trump backing off tariffs like slowly but surely, and then two, I think from what I've seen, liquidity has been quite good in TradFi markets. That should give you good lead on asset price appreciation. So yeah, I think things I think Ryan Watkins might be right.
I mean, similarly, last peak was with the Trump coin meme mania, and then I saw this announcement talking about how Trump is spinning up his own company to purchase Bitcoin as well, to add to the list of others that are doing that. So I don't know what a top signal is anymore. So maybe that's part of the super cycle. But on more fundamental things, I mean, Bitcoin inflows. I mean, like $5 billion of inflows over the past 5 weeks, or probably more than that. I mean, even Ethereum has seen.
Sorry.
Even Ethereum has seen a couple 100 million in the past 2 weeks as well. So it's not just Twitter who's getting excited, I guess. So are the institutions a little bit, maybe. And it's always good to see Bitcoin above 100K. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I think I would agree with both. I think Bitcoin is at all-time highs. I think everyone's happy. Sentiment's been great the past week. And yeah, everyone's building. I don't know. The ecosystems are maturing. I think we're seeing like increased the correlation between crypto assets, where you see areas of outperformance. I mean, hype has been doing great for the past week. Um, so yeah, I think it's a good time to be alive.
I love that. I was going to say, Ryan, to your point and Ryan Watkins' point about bubble conditions. Like, how does the potential Circle IPO play into that as well? I feel like that's been an indicator in the past that people have looked to as well of, oh, Circle's considering an IPO again, and then you find out a year later that that was the peak.
I think it's IPO activity is definitely a good measure of businesses' ability to think that they can get a high valuation. And I think given the disappointment around Circle financials in their S1, the fact that they think that they can do it now still is pretty good. And you want to do it when Bitcoin, like you said, Mark, has a nice big round number that you can point to. Um, yeah, but I don't know how that one's going to go, to be honest.
I think it's tough for Circle, right? With the 50% of reserve asset incomes going to Coinbase. Like, who wants to buy that? Not even Coinbase. Like, why would Coinbase buy 100% of something when they already get 50% of the net interest income from it? Like, I, hard to find a buyer here. I think even if markets get frothy.
You don't think Ripple will come through with the big check?
I hope not.
They're going to run. I mean, they could really run the fake it till you make it playbook. This is what people are saying. They've got a big war chest and they could spend it.
Yeah, it would be great for their legitimacy and brand within crypto. Um, but what does that do to the product? I don't know. It's still like you still have to make crypto natives happy. And I don't know if Ripple buying USDC makes crypto natives happy. It's hard to know.
I think it might make crypto XRP buyers happy. I mean, it's still surprising to me how many people think XRP is digital payments. When I ask, what do you think digital payments are, the integration between TradFi and crypto like stablecoins and stuff, I get XRP as the answer, and I don't see how they see this link. Because maybe I'm not on TikTok enough, but this might just be another thing for influencers to shill. They're the owner of the second largest stablecoin issuer in the world, and maybe that's all you need. I mean, sometimes I see Ripple plastered all along the subways, the metro stations here, and it doesn't say what they do. It just says next gen finance. It just has these nice buzzy catchphrases. So I mean, kudos to their marketing team. I'll give them that. But I mean, I hope there's a more legitimate buyer out there. I mean, I would even rather perhaps bank purchase them, even though there's no need for them, because I guess with, Genius Act, they can issue their own stablecoins now, which I've seen I've seen talks about some of them looking to make a coalition together and mint one stablecoin to kind of get this union of money and not, kind of like combine forces. But yeah, I mean, that just adds to how difficult it is for Circle. Even though they've done well so far, relatively speaking, it's just a difficult position.
It's interesting with the context of as well with Plasma, and they just announced the XPL. They're going to do a public sale for the XPL token for Plasma, and obviously that relationship there to Tether. So it's just very interesting to see Tether be so successful, so profitable, spinning out a network with a token associated, and people are looking at Circle like, man, dude, I don't know if I really want to touch this thing, and they're maybe trying or struggling to IPO here. We'll see.
I don't know if y'all read the public sale for that is XPL token for Plasma, but I thought it was pretty interesting. I saw it's not just it's by Sona by Echo, but it's not just a let me buy tokens, let me allocate this. You have to deposit some stable coins. They take USDT, USDC, DAI, some others, and the longer you deposit it for, you get more units. They're calling it, and then these units, if the more units you gather, which depends on how long you've locked your stable coins for and how much, the more units you get, then it gives you a greater allocation to purchase the XPL token at like $500 million FDV. And I think that's like a unique fundraising thing, a fundraising mechanism specifically for stablecoin, where the amount of stablecoins you have does matter because it's a liquidity game. And then at the end of it, all of the stablecoins that you've deposited will be converted into USDT and then put on the Plasma chain. So I thought it was a really interesting mechanism, and I do like the design. I'm interested to see how much TVL they get from this.
I agree. That's really interesting. I didn't know about that. It seems like the B33 mechanism where you have like the more you lock tokens, the more governance power you have, but translated into like a funding mechanism seems really interesting. Like to get like actual allocators that are like long term committed to the plasma token or whatever. And I think like over the past months we've been talking about how do we get like exposure to stable coins, and there's like adjacent ways to do it, like you say like money markets, you say like yield trading platforms. I think plasma is one of the more like direct ways to do it, so I think like it's going to be an oversubscribed like a public sale, to be honest.
Can I put any chain? Can I put any token on Plasma? Any stable coin on Plasma, or is it just like their token?
I think they listed out like 4 or 5 of them, the major ones. I think USDCS, DAI, USDT, USDC. That I glimpsed it. I think it's just the major ones.
Got it. And will they have like a? Could you swap them? Will they have stable swaps?
So this is just the fundraising mechanism. So this is not even talking about like we're not even on the L1 chain yet. This is just like pre the launch of the actual L1.
So
Pre-chain.
they don't even have guidance onto whether or not you'll be able to do stable coin swaps on there. Or
Not that I've read, but I mean anything that I read that all of the stable coins that you put will be converted into USDT on and then bridge to the plasma chain. I don't know what the actual capabilities of the plasma chain is going to be. So I mean, I imagine it must have basic swap capabilities if it's going to be any kind of successful.
Yeah, they're going to have to offer some way to onboard other currencies, I would imagine. Maybe that's enabled directly through a bridge, or they would have, markets made on chain as well. But I mean, if it's like any other chain we've ever seen, then I'm sure they'll have some liquidity to enable that. I think the other interesting part there is they're doing this sale at a valuation reflecting the prior raise that they did with Founders Fund. So it's at $500 million valuation or FTV. To your, I think was it Carlos who said that or Mark that it'll be oversubscribed. Yeah, I would expect that that's probably what would happen here. But I do think I like the point about this mechanism. I think it's interesting that they're like, forcing you to account for the time value of money here, because if you deposit and then you only get some pro rata share of the total amount that gets allocated to people to be purchased, you could you could put up 1 million of capital and you only get to invest 10,000. So you're really, I guess what I would say is that it encourages people to like really consider like, do I, how much of my money do I want to have locked up in this thing? Because all the money that does not get allocated, like that will have just been, lost value of that, lost opportunity cost there. Which I think is interesting because I think most other sales like there's not usually a mechanism for that. It's like you're locking up capital and you're expecting some yield or some direct airdrop in proportion to that. And this is a little bit different. Whether you're building DeFi protocols, enterprise solutions, or next-gen dApps, AlgoKit has all the tools you'll need to build faster, safer, and smarter on Algorand. AlgoKit 3.0 now offers native TypeScript and Python support, visual debugging, and seamless testing. Build, test, and deploy with tools designed for speed and simplicity. Start building with AlgoKit today by following the link in today's show notes. This episode is brought to you by Ledger, the global leader in digital asset security. Celebrating 10 years of innovation, Ledger remains the most secure hardware wallet for your crypto and logins, trusted by 7 million users and securing 20% of the world's digital assets. Follow the link in today's show notes to grab your Ledger now. As always, investments in blockchain technology involve risk, terms and conditions apply. Do your own research. We can jump on though. I think another big thing that happened last week was the Solana Accelerate conference. We had some folks there. Both Ryan and Carlos were there. I'm sure some other Blockworks folks were there, but wanted to have them both on and give some big takeaways and talk about the conference, like what happened, the big teams and big ideas that popped up. So I guess if either one of you want to kind of take it away and give like your feel, how was Accelerate and what were some of like the big things we're thinking about?
I guess I can dive first into like the infrastructure side. So I think like from a core dev perspective, the main focus today is just how do we prioritize cancels over takes, like when it comes to specific like order sequencing. Uh, and I think the reason for that is if you look at the Solana landscape today, like across the various DeFi sectors like DEXs, money markets, tokenization, perps, whatever, the sector where Solana has definitely not succeeded is on-chain order books. And you can kind of look at that like in the perps landscape, where Hyperliquid is doing 6 times more volume than all of Solana perps DEXs combined. And so I think like in order to fulfill that vision of like decentralized NASDAQ and having like all of the capital markets trade on chain, Solana needs to figure out how do we get order books on chain. And that's like a big focus from the major, like from the Solana Foundation, from ANSA, from the major teams, is how do we achieve this? And I think like the Alpenglow consensus mechanism, the new proposals that have been coming up, like in terms of like there was a post by Max Resnick and totally describing like decentralized Nasdaq and like implementing like multiple concurrent leaders and like application specific sequencing. I think all of this is geared toward like how do we get order books on chain, and that means how do we reduce like toxic order flow and enable market makers to like provide like tighter spreads and provide liquidity without them worrying about like having like losses, because they essentially have like a structural disadvantage against stakers. So I think like that's the main takeaway from the infrastructure side. Happy to hear like from Ryan what are the other takeaways like from the application side.
Yeah, I thought just like at a higher level first, I thought it was an awesome conference. I've I went to Breakpoint last year, and this is my second Solana conference, and both were just outstanding in terms of organization and content, and um, especially in contrast to the other large crypto conferences. The ones that aren't protocol specific, but just like general crypto conferences that tend to have like, I don't know, just like the wrong people tend to be there, or a lot of people, the people in the room are people that you perhaps can't trust or shouldn't trust. Just like a lot of really kind people, like just shaking hands and meeting people. Like a lot of really good energy in the room. A lot of really kind people, a lot of really smart people. My big takeaway at the kind of app side is like just integrations and consumer bets on Solana are really accelerating. You have X stocks from Kraken, which I think was a big deal, and I'll get kind of or I'll get back into that a little later. But you have the Kalashi integration, or sorry, Kalshi integration with Solana for USDC, Farcaster on Solana, MetaMax on Solana, Doge integrating to Solana. You have the Ledger device doing a Solana only device. Yeah, it's like there's just like a lot of really good energy on there. Everyone's realizing that you want a piece. A lot of the teams that stayed away from the ecosystem for a long time and then doubted its rise are now, for lack of a better term, capitulating and, either, building an app or integrating into the ecosystem in some way. I think the X stocks from Kraken thing is a big deal. You know, Everyone was really excited about Base and its, distribution advantage. It's similar to Binance and its distribution, or Binance Smart Chain and its distribution advantage. But like the first chain that I like that really stood out to me that they were doing this, really executing on effectively, was FTX and Solana. And then FTX went down, and Solana then lost its distribution advantage. FTX was by many measures the fastest growing, and in some markets the number one centralized exchange, and then they lost that relationship, which obviously really hurt the network in many ways. But the big one was distribution. Now they don't really have that. They kind of have it with Phantom now that you can get on there with Apple Pay, and onboarding smoother, but like you don't really have it from like a fintech perspective. And maybe like the reason why I'm excited about X stocks is like maybe Kraken's that thing for Solana. I think that there is some future state where Solana doesn't execute and then falls behind and is like no longer the dominant player in crypto. I think that's a real possibility. And to establish that centralized exchange relationship that can give your tokens listing preference, that can add you as, that can make you an onboarding preference. Um, it's really necessary for them to maintain their lead, and it was good to see that that's happening.
And it's kind of interesting, right? Because Kraken has its own like L2, and they still like decided like to go with Solana. So that speaks volumes. Like everyone's trying to come into the network. They think like if you need, like if you're an application developer and you're thinking, where do I launch my application today? I think 80% of developers will just choose Solana, and that's because like nowhere like in history has have startups been able to like grow so fast, like from a time to market perspective. And you're seeing applications like, for example, Axiom, like it launched a few months ago. Danny highlighted in our report, and it's doing like 100 million annualized revenue. Like that's like really incredible. And like it, other teams see that and they say, like Ryan says, I want a piece of that. And they, and you can kind of see that in the inflows in the ecosystem.
I like the point about Kraken as well, Ryan. Like we know that there are others exploring this idea. Robinhood has stated explicitly that they want to do basically the exact same product, offer equities on chain for like UK residents, which is essentially the Kraken one. Who knows if they're going to use the same partners or if they're going to build that themselves or use a different partner, but it points to that same question of like, I think there's been rumors of like, is Robinhood going to use Arbitrum, or is it going to make its own L2? Are they going to do Solana? With Kraken selecting Solana for this purpose, it has you wondering like, is Robinhood, are other exchanges going to fall in line and do the exact same thing, launch similar products on Solana, and you could see some of that distribution value come back to the chain that it lost from FTX going away.
Yeah, it's answering the a lot of people doubt a chain's ability to sustain value, right? Like either apps are going to get too big and they're going to leave. Um, I think that in an indirect way, this kind of addresses that, where you're starting to see that network effect, right? You're starting to see what Ethereum had. Like you had to go to Ethereum in early 2021 to build a business. um, you're starting to see that on Solana. If they can get the right partners in terms of asset issuance and execute on that distribution strategy, like I think that they can run away with it over the next 12 to 24 months. But we'll see. Obviously, like Kraken wants people to go to Inc, but is the Solana network effect strong enough to overcome that that itch? I think so.
I guess maybe steering away from Accelerate for a moment as well, but another kind of like hot piece of news is around the CFTC and regulating US perps, maybe making that a fully regulated but like legal operation within the US, at least, where it traditionally has not been. It feels like that plays in here as well. Like Coinbase, they've tried to get into the perps game. I'm sure we would see Kraken, Robinhood, all of these other large exchanges in the US would probably love to have offerings on the perps line of things. I mean, we've seen how massive and how successful Hyperliquid has been with their sort of, I mean, decentralized or like half decentralized. I don't think that really matters, but regardless, they've been able to grow a massive community around that product, and seen incredible success in seemingly taking like some market share away from centralized exchange perps volume. Um, I guess I'm curious. Do we have thoughts here, like what the implications of like fully regulated U.S. perps offerings might do to kind of the landscape today?
Yeah, I think it's obviously bullish U.S. based crypto things and things with the existing distribution. I think it's pretty bullish Coinbase. I think it's bearish Hyperliquid, and these aren't absolute statements, right? It's like incrementally bullish, incrementally bearish. I don't think Hyperliquid's a zero because of this. Like it's still one of the Blockwork research team's favorite picks, obviously spearheaded by Bach. Um, but the more you allow traditional financial institutions to participate in this market, the harder it's going to be for these decentralized alternatives because they're more clicks away, and they're not going to win the institutional dollar, or it's going to be much harder to win the institutional dollar, right? People, they like, frankly, they want someone that they can sue if something goes wrong. And like, I don't think that Hyperliquid can be sued or it's going to be really hard, right? So yeah, I think it's pretty bullish for the incumbents for sure. But I don't think, I think that the perps thing, it's only in like comment right now, right? So like there's some indication, but I don't know, it could be slow, I think they're just accepting comments right now from TradFi institutions. So we'll see how that goes. There's going to be people that don't want it to happen, right? Because they see themselves as losers and they'll try to block it.
I will say, just from recent historical examples, like we saw Robinhood go from no prediction markets product to fully live and operating prediction markets product after some pushback from the CFTC initially on their Super Bowl rollout. And that happened over the span of like 6 months, I want to say. So, I mean, they did the election. Sorry, not the Trump. They did the election in 2024, and then they tried to do Super Bowl outcomes, and that there was some pushback there, maybe related to sports gambling versus being a prediction market. I'm not sure, but I guess they squared some of that away, and rolling out the full prediction market platform a couple months ago now. So that happened pretty quickly. Not to say that we're going to see regulated perps exchanges pop up in the next 6 months, but you never know. This new administration, it's been very different, right? These companies are not as held up in the past, where you got a letter from Gary Gensler and it was like, okay, we're done for the next, we can't do anything for 2 years. So we'll see. I guess I would say I would more optimistic.
How many markets does Polymarket have? Or sorry, does Robinhood have for prediction markets?
There's a good chunk. The last time I checked, they had a lot of the typical things you might see, like expectations around the like rate cuts, or rate hikes, cuts, different political markets, different, think some like larger sports markets. They obviously did March Madness, the entire bracket. So they've got a few. I would guess it's not going to be anywhere near as many as Polymarket offers, but I don't think that's their goal, right? They're probably looking to offer the highest impact, like individual prediction markets for their customers, which, since they started with the election and then the Super Bowl, like it seems like they've had a pretty strategic kind of rollout of that. But I would expect it's probably going to expand. I'm sure it will. They've seen the the revenue generation from, I think, some of those big markets, and realized the opportunity.
Yeah, I like prediction markets more and more. Mike Ippolito, co-founder of Blockworks, he's a big prediction market bull, and with with our bullishness on meme coins, it's like they reduce the friction to gambling and they increase having fun. So that's why retail likes them. And prediction markets seem a little almost easier than meme coins, right? It's like there's a lot of actually confusion that comes with meme coins. Which one is the right one? Why is I don't know. Why is one dog coin ripping and the other one's not? Like, is this one actually cuter than the other one? The Keynesian beauty contest is hard, and that's kind of like part of that's one of the reasons why the stock market is annoying. It's often a Keynesian beauty contest. But however, like I'm just looking at Kalshi right now. It's like will Starship launch on will SpaceX Starship launch before May 28th or after May 20th? It's like, okay, I can get behind that one. I can look at it historically, how the launches have been, and then I can like, it's a very like, I know when I win, right? It's like, it's very clear cut. And there's so many different things you could do a prediction market on. Like there's infinite possibilities, and you get hit kind of, you can test any of these kind of subcultures and see what sticks or not. And I don't know, Kalshi in their talk at Breakpoint said that they're one of the fastest growing companies in the US. That's incredible, given I would have assumed that it was OpenAI or something. Maybe, I don't have the facts on that, but they alluded to that, which I thought was pretty cool.
The one thing I'm waiting for, and that I would just expect to roll out of one of these is to wrap one of these up in like a more gamblified consumer app and put parlays on there and get your average like sports gambler guy who does five leg parlays on sports teams and like individual players, and start doing that with these markets. I don't know if as part of this, like, there's clearly, I think, some gray area difference legally around these prediction markets versus how the CFTC is regulating sports gambling platforms. But I don't know if parlays or like leverage or other things are a part of that distinction, and maybe they need to license or work out some thought there. But that just feels like a very obvious product unlock to me.
Yep. Yeah, I think I see once a week on Twitter someone complaining about how there's no parlays on Polymarket.
AlgoKit 3.0 includes all the tools and open source resources you need to unleash the power and performance of the Algorand blockchain. Access a resilient network with instant finality, consistently high throughput and low fees, and layer 1 features like atomic swaps and native assets. No smart contracts required. Whether you're building DeFi protocols, enterprise solutions, or next-gen dApps, AlgoKit has all the tools you'll need to build faster, safer, and smarter. Start building with AlgoKit today by following the link in today's show notes. Ledger is the global leader in digital asset security, trusted by 7 million users and securing 20% of the world's digital assets. In recent years, Ledger has built a comprehensive ecosystem of products and services, making digital ownership more secure and accessible for everyone. Ledger's newest devices, Ledger Stacks and Ledger Flex, introduced the world's first secure touchscreens, making it easier and safer to manage your transactions and assets. Alongside Ledger Stacks and Ledger Flex, they have also launched the Ledger Security Key app, offering a safer alternative to traditional passwords and enhancing your digital security. Follow the link into today's show notes to get started with Ledger today. As always, investments in blockchain technology involve risk. Terms and conditions apply. Do your own research. Cool. And then maybe this is a weird shift, but Ryan, since we got onto the consumer train a little bit, were there any like big consumer takeaways going back to this Solana Accelerate stuff? Because I think we kind of jumped into Perps and got off track there, but
Big consumer takeaways. I think the Kalshi integration and X stocks were kind of the biggest ones from like a headline perspective. Would you consider wallets consumer?
sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that MetaMask capitulated. You know, they've been putting that off for a long time. So to have them on board is cool. I spoke with some founders that just, there's a lot of talent building over there. There's good consumer energy there. And like Nikita has like a cult following of, you know, viral indie dev tech enthusiasts who want to go where the next big platform is and, next viral loop is. And, that group of indie devs have not had financial incentives, right? So like a great viral loop for something like time.fun is just like totally token going up, because then someone can say, look, the token went up, and it can be shareable and you can try to make money on it. So I think that there's going to be a large cohort of Web2 devs, and you saw them at Accelerate, that are going to follow him to this ecosystem and try interesting little things that could end up really big.
On the consumer front, was any enthusiasm around the Solana Mobile, the Seeker phone coming out?
Yeah, totally. It was buzzing. The Seeker had a section. They had a large booth, right, for like Seeker activation. I think you could sign up there, and they also had models. I was surprised at how smooth it was. It was pretty limited. You couldn't click around too much, but where you could click around, the apps that they did have, they're much smoother. And from the V1 Solana phone, it obviously, the build is fantastic, the most durable phone I've ever had. The app experience, the UX is, left a lot to be desired. So I think they really focused on that this time around. And it's a good looking device too. I'm an iPhone guy, but that phone looks good and it felt good, and yeah, I'm excited for it to come out. I think it's coming out August 8th. So that should be exciting.
Yeah, I think they start shipping early August. I've ordered mine, pre-ordered mine since last year, so I've been waiting quite some time for it. But I'm excited.
Yeah, and they revamped the App Store too. Like they're taking it seriously. They added like new branding and everything. Like I think it's interesting, right? Like we're actually approaching this time in the device market where people think it's up for grabs. Like there's there's not a platform shift, but there's definitely a feature set shift where you need to integrate AI, and now perhaps it'll be less in demand than AI, but you might want some crypto native features. I think Apple's the weakest that it's been in my life or since I started paying attention to technology markets or 20 years ago or something. It's definitely the weakest it's been. It has disappointed investors. It's been late on product announcements. It's promised features that has never shipped like for the first time. It's leaving a lot of people disappointed. So like there's a gap in the market. You see ChatGPT or sorry, OpenAI purchasing Johnny Ive's company IO and going to market with some mystery device that's TBD. You're seeing the contrast in AI features between Android and iPhone today. You see Apple failing on Siri. Like, I'm not saying that I think that Solana Seeker will be the next big platform, but you could see since it's an open source thing, you could see some Android OEM grabbing some crypto native features and putting them in the phone if you know crypto native payments in some EM country are taking off and they want to ship to that region. Like that doesn't seem it seems plausible that there's an opening here.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. The other interesting part with the Seeker, right, is that they've teased a token, an SKR token for this thing, which is interesting. The initial Model 1 of the phone, there were airdrops, right? You got some bonk, some other things for having been like a Genesis NFT holder for buying the phone. In this case, it sounds like maybe there'll be some token allocation directly from a Seeker token for having purchased the phone. There, Luke Ledger's done reports on Solana Mobile and has talked about how the device has technically already paid itself off with like peak airdrop valuations from being a Seeker purchaser in the past. So it's technically already a free device, but it is interesting to see that like they've chosen to launch a token alongside this thing. I don't know if you guys have thoughts there. I've seen some commentary here that like people are maybe a little upset, like this is kind of almost dilutive to the Solana ecosystem in a way.
That was my first initial thought. I thought, it's Solana Mobile, which is a subsidiary of Solana Labs, and I'm like, is this a conflict of interest? Is attention getting diverted from the Soul token? Like, and then I also, maybe this is on me for not digging deep into it, but I also don't know what the point of the SKR token actually is. Like, even if they want to say governance or payments, all of that is such a stretch for the other coins that do that a lot better. So for me, it was kind of like it seemed kind of iffy, more like a land grab kind of play. But my mind is here to be changed.
I see it kind of like a distribution strategy where if you know there's going to be a token and you know that the B1 version like paid off like for itself with airdrops, like I think people kind of expect the new phone to pay for itself with the SKR token. And I think like I kind of look at it like as a deepin network where you pay contributors like in the native token. And in this case, like you're paying like holders basically for just buying the phone. And it's kind of like you kind of have to do it in a way. Like if you look at the market today, I don't think like anyone's going to switch like their iPhone for a Seeker unless like you offer some kind of like incentive on top of it. And I think like this is the way to do it. The reason like it's an SKR token and not a soul token, like I imagine it would be like quite hard to give like a soul allocation to to like saga holders, right? You can't really do that, but like with SKR, you can just like do it very easily. So I think like that's kind of one of the reasons they went like with a new token. Like you can't really like have a way to like give a sole allocation in a way, and again you need these incentives, so it makes sense in my opinion.
Yeah, it's only dilutive to Sol if it has a take on Rev. So unless they're giving it a 10% Rev allocation, I'm not worried.
My thought was okay, but people who bought the phone, I mean, first of all, I assume everybody who's buying this phone isn't planning to use it as their number one. Like I already have a phone. I'm using it as a second phone that I have. And after the first one dropped, everybody made back their money from meme airdrops and whatnot. I just assumed everybody's thought going into the second one was the same idea, like, oh, I'm going to get airdrop stuff. It's a kind of a better phone. It'll pay itself off, like Danny was saying. Um, then and then when they announce the SKR, I get it for bootstrapping. And then I have to think, where does the value come from? Where does the SKR token derive its value from? And I get it. I mean, like this is a question for this the whole industry, not just Solana Mobile, for many projects. And I understand it as a bootstrapping mechanism. But maybe I'm just somebody, and I think you all know this from our internal chats. I lean to the side of less tokens, not more, which is not a very popular stance in this space. But I hope I'm proven wrong. I hope the SKR token actually has some kind of proper value accrual mechanisms that doesn't qualify it as a security while also bootstrapping the network.
Yeah, maybe in this case, like the token is a product. Like I saw some people like say this is the first like mobile device with that token, and then Austin Federa have like an interesting like switch in it, which saying like this is the first token like with a mobile device. So maybe it's like the way like to distribute like your network, you know.
Yeah, Carlos, I liked your point about distribution, but as like an onboarding incentive essentially, and comparing it to DePIN networks. I think that makes a lot of sense. I guess in this case, like, Mark, I agree with everything you said. I bought the phone because I thought I thought it would be free from, paid back via airdrops. The fact that they're going to go ahead and launch their own token as well, it could be that that's part of this plan as well. Like, they had however many sales that they had, 180,000 devices, I want to say, like prior to this announcement. Maybe the goal is to sell another 200,000, and maybe announcing that you are for a fact going to have a token convinces that many more people to like buy a phone or buy an additional one. With the, maybe the idea being that, okay, I'm going to receive tokens in exchange for having bought the device.
I do think that there are interesting crypto native features on the original Solana mobile phone. Just to like, I use it for my crypto stuff. Like if I'm gonna do crypto things, I go on my Solana mobile phone, and there is a UX issue. It's not as smooth as the iPhone, but I can imagine it taking a lot more, like, I don't know, of my time share if they can really smooth that out. But yeah, obviously the airdrop helps. That's going to be the bulk of your volume on like crypto related hardware things for the foreseeable future. The thing that the market, I think, needs to keep in mind is that the Solana mobile thing is not to sell phones. It's to get an OEM to adopt this open source software that allows you to store your keys in a certain way and interact with a decentralized app store in a secure way, which is often lost in the media's framing.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. They're really just proving out the model and hoping it gets picked up and spread around, which makes a ton of sense. And it's not surprising, I think, to see other teams taking a similar approach, like Sui and their gaming device. And I mean, there's plenty of phone, like there's an Ethereum phone. There's a bunch of these like smaller crypto devices going after like this type of thing. So, um, multiple teams, I think, kind of see that opportunity there, which makes a ton of sense. Go ahead, Mark. Oh, never mind.
And one last point on that for the features of the phone. To be fair, like the Enclave device, I saw that maybe a few weeks ago, Google started integrating zero knowledge proofs into its wallet platform. To like prove that somebody's over the age of 18 without actually revealing information. I mean, we all here know how it works, but if these kind of features become more popular, then having these crypto native phones where the actual information is stored on the device versus Google's cloud, like I can see that picking up in popularity as well.
This episode is brought to you by Marinade. Marinade is focused on developing staking technology that strengthens the Solana network and connects SOL holders with the best staking rates available. With solutions for both DeFi and TradFi, including liquid and native staking, as well as direct enterprise integrations, Marinade's high-performance staking delegation platform brings billions in liquidity and security to the SOL market. To learn more, follow the link in today's show notes, and thanks again to Marinade for sponsoring today's episode. As always, investments in blockchain technology involve risk, terms and conditions apply. Do your own research. I like it. Let's I think we're getting close on time here, but I want to do one more topic, and Mark, I want to tee you up for it. You've written a bit about the MegaETH ecosystem. I think this is a pretty hot one, like at least within the community, for a couple of reasons. One, I think MegaETH, they've been very like open and upfront about their design and like the practical choices that they're making to have like a very high performant network. And, you know, the fact that it's an L2 and that they're going to have like a big, like really big, fat, beefy sequencer to pump out a ton of throughput. They're not afraid to like have a very direct approach there. And then two, they did an echo raise, and then they also have the NFT as well that I think a lot of people are assuming they'll get some token allocation for. So they've given like the community some participation in the potential upside there, which I think they're happy about. And then Bread is a very vocal, loud proponent on the timeline, and I think people like his takes. He's upfront and he brings a lot of data. But you covered the ecosystem. I'd love to hear like, what are you looking at there? What are the big apps? Like, what are we looking forward to from MegaETH? How do we feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it there with the points why MegaETH is kind of getting so popular. I love, these L2s get criticized for having centralized sequencer, and I love that MegaETH is just leaning into it and like trying to take that to extreme while improving the EVM and like making it parallelizable and whatnot. In the ecosystem, the apps that I looked at and the teams that I talked to, obviously the common trend was, MegaETH is fast, incredibly fast, and we're going to have these applications that are going to lean on this speed and low latency, and going to have products that we haven't seen thus far in the space. And it just kind of makes me feel like crypto's finally maturing to the stage where like, okay, we seem to have solved scalability right now, and it's less time to get users. But something else that also surprised me, kind of surprised me, was that in talking to these teams, some of these teams, a lot of these teams actually are going with a blend, like doing things on chain, but still doing some of their execution and logic off chain too, because I guess there's privacy reasons and there's also just speed reasons as well. Not everything can be done on a blockchain, nor does it need to be, especially if it's money gaming. And some of these teams chose MegaETH not just because of the speed. The speed is there, nice to have, and it was definitely a requirement, but more so for the social community aspect of it, i.e. the distribution, which I do think MegaETH can help them with. And then we saw stuff like with Mega Mafia, how much the team actually helped a select group of apps who they thought was special and helped them get attention and marketing and whatnot. But I digress. I think one of the ones I like the most on it is an app called Euphoria. So they're not public. They don't have a mainnet yet, but I was privileged enough to get a demo of it, and I can only describe it to you because they kind of want to get it. They're kind of keeping it under the wraps for now because of how optimistic they are about this release. But Euphoria is basically an app, and think of it like a trading grid where you can select where you think the line is going to go, right? So you're literally watching a chart in real time, or you could, be a little bit more conservative and set it to like minutes or weeks. But, let's just imagine you're looking at it at the second chart and you can click where on the screen you think that the line is going to go to next. And, it seems so fun. The UX looks so smooth. And I think what a lot of people won't realize that they're doing is that they're actually trading options, like a very complex derivative that hasn't taken off in crypto at all. And now it'll just be there at your fingertips in a very gamified way. They're going to have like a leaderboard, social stuff, show your own P&L. They're really leaning into the social and gamified aspects of it. But when I was reading about it, I was like, okay, this is neat. It's only when I saw the actual demo that I really got hyped. It's very hard for me to relay this just through voice, but that's one I was looking forward to, and especially because I haven't seen anything like it before, not just in crypto, but just even in TradFi. Because I mean, even the most popular, financial apps that we have in crypto are just maybe copy and paste. Apart from Perps, which have done well in of themselves, the others tend to be like some version of already existing apps. So it's nice to see something that doesn't even exist in TradFi. Apart from Euphoria, we talked about prediction markets, and how, Ryan talked about how nice those are over meme coins for the various reasons. There was one called Guess Best, and it was basically you're trying to guess what is the current trend right now, and it's basically like hot or not, or like Tinder for current trends. And I think they have like thousands, tens of thousands of markets already live right now, and you just have to be sometimes you have to be in the zeitgeist of what's going on with whatever the topic is to kind of play it. When I was playing this game in the demo, I kind of just started to play it a little bit too much. I'm like, oh yeah, this is just research. I have work to do, which is kind of how addictive it can be, even though it's still in the early stages, still maybe a little bit slow. And when I say slow, I mean it takes 1 second or 1.2 seconds, which for me is I'm maybe not the most patient person when it comes to tech. So it's really nice to see that, and something that I imagine they will have like an off-chain element of this too, and leaderboards and whatnot. And then it's what I liked about it is that it's a game that you can play for free for fun, like I did, or you can actually put some money on the table where you can either just guess what the current trends are, or you can go 1v1, 3v3 against people 1v3 to see who's better at guessing what's in right now. And the good thing about it are these trends are always changing. And I also think that this might not be, we didn't no token talk here, very speculative, but that kind of data for this app, the kind of, if they can get what everybody's thinking in real time and as trends evolve, I think that kind of data for themselves is monetizable however they want to use it. Making ads or selling it to third parties, I think that data in itself is very valuable. So that's another one that I really liked. And then more on the DeFi end of things, Carlos asked about this one, Avon. It's basically an lending order book. We haven't really seen order books take off on Solana or really many chains. We have for trading, we haven't seen it really take off for lending either. And you're going to get the same kind of Pareto efficient jumps that you would get for lending that you would get for trading over AMM. Like tighter spreads, lower rates for the borrowers, higher rates for the lenders in terms of what the protocol keeps and how efficient it is, and like liquidations at a quicker level, or even like micro liquidations where your entire position isn't going to get liquidated because of how efficient, how quick it can be, and how quickly the prices move. On the trading side, there was a couple like Valhalla and GTE. These ones are also combining like their risk engines off chain with their order books on chain, which I'm really interested to see, because I really do think if any chain can do it, as one with a very beefy centralized sequencer can do these kind of things. And I get this feeling that they think like the general consensus sees MegaETH as more as a gaming social L2, that because there are some others like TCG Showdown, which is like poker, but kind of like with gambling, with more elements of gambling added into it. And if you know how to play poker, I played the demo. I was lucky enough to get access to that. If you know how to play poker, you can pick up this game in like 10 seconds, and you just have to really like learn the cards, and it just adds another element to it. But then, as I mentioned, there are these order books for the lending and for the DeFi that that really do put some, I don't know, put some oomph behind the financial aspects of MegaETH as well. So those I'm looking forward to. As on top of it, or on top of all of it. And maybe one last one that I will mention is Hop VPN. I think they, as the name implies, they're VPN, but we've seen VPNs be tried in this decentralized manner before in this space, and they don't really work well. They're not great products. But I think what I liked about Hop was that they're abstracting all of that crypto complexity away from it. You can go on, you can potentially, when it's mainnet, go sign up like you sign up to any VPN. Stripe embeds crypto payments into its backend now, so you could potentially use Stripe to just pay for this VPN, and they're leaning into it as not as a privacy network as a lot of the other crypto native VPNs that narrative they try to push, but Hop is kind of more doing it as a geographic blocker, like how all of us probably use our VPNs. And we kind of want them to be quick with speed as well. So I think Hop is leaning into that. Plus, I'm sure, as we all know, sometimes I try to access a website, a crypto website, and I'm geo-blocked, and I put on my VPN, and they know that server is linked to this, whether it be Node or Surfshark or whoever it is, and then you have to try a VPN in another region, and you're kind of like, you have to use multiple locations in this. And I think with the advantage with a decentralized one is that it's not so easy to pinpoint who the actual servers are. So it kind of makes geo-blocking a lot harder, and I think that's what most people use these VPNs for. So I think that's the last one I'm going to shout out. But I think there's some really interesting projects coming out on MegaETH, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's on public test right now, so I encourage any listeners to go and try it out, because you can actually get a taste of the speed of the chain even though it's in testnet. So yeah.
What do you think of the quality of the consumer teams?
So it seems like it's interesting. A lot of these people are coming from Web 2. It's not like I'm like, oh, is this project your, which chain did you try on before? They were like, no, this is their first blockchain app that they're building, and they just know that they really believe, and I guess on the testnet they're seeing that MegaETH can handle this level of speed. A lot of them are doing it hybrid, off chain, on chain as well. And like, with like TCG, the people who are building the app are former champions in Magic the Gathering and former champions in poker. So like they have that experience, they're making a new game. The same thing with like Valhalla. They built a TradFi risk engine, like a centralized exchange, and now they're just doing this on chain. So like a lot of them have this Web 2 app background and now coming to Web 3 for the first time, and I really like to see that. I know there's going to be some kind of a difference between those two, but I kind of like to see like they not in a bad way. This no entrepreneurship is about failing, but it's not like this is their third iteration of a project and they're just trying to do it on a different chain because hopefully this one gives them distribution. Like they're coming with novel ideas because they think that like as I mentioned, I actually think crypto probably has some scale now, and now it's just to get the apps to fill that demand and that latency. So I think I've been impressed, and I've been like I'm optimistic about these Web 2 teams building on them. I mean, I should say Web 3 teams now. Web 3 teams, yeah.
Do you think that I think that MegaETH has claimed 200,000 TPS, or that's possible in test environment. I'm not sure the conditions of the claim, but do you think that we'll see that on mainnet?
No. I mean, every time an L1 or L2 comes out and says, I'm going to have this TPS, it never happens. And I never believe it. So no offense, MegaETH, but no.
Yeah, like I was historically, I've just discounted every claim or performance claim that a blockchain makes by 75%. So do you think that 50K TPS is possible? If we were to do that to MegaETH, that's what we get to, and that would be pretty impressive.
I mean, a lot of these teams still claim that they can handle these level of transactions, and I don't want to call any blockchains out, but the fact of the matter is, you may be able to do this, but you don't have the users to prove it. And then the only time we actually see, oh wow, this chain can actually handle it, is when some spam app launches on the chain and everybody clicks one thing over and over, and we say, okay, fine, they could have handled it, but then that usage also dies out. So then who really cares? So like I said, okay, I know I know we can handle the scale, right? Like, but it's really just about getting the users and the apps. I think that's the more important part than like what your theoretical or actual practical TPS is, because in reality, you probably aren't going to hit that level, sustained level, for some time.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take, and I think what we've seen like with Solana's development probably informs a lot of that view, where it's like, maybe theoretically the pieces of the stack could do certain things in terms of throughput in an idealized environment of all transactions look exactly the same, XYZ conditions, and then you find out that like, oh, this one piece of the stack like is a bottleneck to everything else, and it take your whole assumption like collapses to from 200k TPS to 500 TPS because that thing is a bottleneck. So yeah, I mean, I would imagine similar to what Mark just said. It's like, who knows what the real number is? You need a lot of demand to even stimulate up to like Solana levels of activity. There's not many chains doing that. Maybe Hyperliquid as well on the Perps exchange. But yeah, the demand has. It seems like recently, at least, the demand has been a bigger problem than the supply of the block space, at least. Awesome. Well, I think before we close it out there, thank you, Mark. That was a great coverage of MegaETH. I'm sure the MegaETH, the rabbits and bread will be incredibly happy about that one showing up on the pod. I got to give a shout out to and for Permissionless. 0x10 is the code. Get 10% off tickets. It's coming in less than a month now, the 24th of June to the 26th. This whole crew, I think we'll all be there. Mark, Carlos, you guys will be there. Ryan and I will definitely be there. So get your tickets, come out, see us. The premier Blockworks podcast. I'm saying that now. The dunk tank will be there. Ryan is getting in the dunk tank. I'll get in the dunk tank. We're going to get Bach in the dunk tank. Yano, Mippo. Start making a list, guys. Come out, scream at people to get in the dunk tank. We'll make it happen. Any last thoughts, guys, before we close things out today?
Come to Permissionless to dunk on people in real life instead of just on Twitter.
Love it. We'll call it there. We'll call it there. Come dunk on Ryan, Cash Flows Connor at Permissionless live June 24th through the 26th. We'll see you guys there. Thanks for watching today, and thanks for coming on, guys.